Hello, welcome to the latest edition of Rugby League Back Chat. Hope you're all safe and well as ever during isolation and you're enjoying yourself. Looking forward to some Rugby League in the near future. It's not too far away now, but while we are waiting this week, we have two bona fide legends of this game on the show. Please welcome Paul Sculthorpe and Lee Briers. Gents, it is fantastic to have you. Thank you so much for coming on, and especially you, Lee. Now, Lee's might not have much to say during this show because he's currently fasting as we're recording this, which must be quite difficult. Lee, talk us through the fasting. What's brought this on?
Yeah, so I do it quite regular. The intermittent fasting, which is eat for 8 hours a day and fast for 16 hours a day. But every Monday in June, there's a guy called Wim Hof who I follow quite closely. He's a guru on all this stuff, and he's a fantastic person. He's into all his breathing and cold methods, and fasting is a challenge every Monday. We do 24 hours, so there's a lot of people, obviously, who follow Wim Hof, and there's a group of my friends, there's about 8 of us who are doing it. We'll come up with the idea we'll do a 24-hour challenge on a Monday, so no food on Monday, and breakfast will be, first time we eat will be on Tuesday at 8 a.m. So, yeah, in fasting stage now, but it's really good, actually. You think that because you're not eating that, you're going to be low on energy and, it drains you. But it does the actual opposite. You have plenty of energy and, it's healthy. But also it refreshes the mind. It recharges the batteries and resets you. So it's good. It's a good challenge. My missus doesn't like it too much because, she likes cooking food and stuff like that. But, it's an interesting challenge, but it's well worth doing.
Don't know about you, Scully, but I won't fancy that.
No, I've had a go at it, man. I think I lasted till just after dinner. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Bring back the old Brazy. What's happened to the old Brazy? He's fasting. He's training. And there's no boozing.
No boozing. So I've grown a beard. I think I might just open a retreat up in my back garden. Come along.
Hey, Scully, you look like you've been enjoying yourself during lockdown. You're making me look like Casper the Ghost at the minute. We are tan out. How have you developed such a tan in Costa del? Are you in St Helens still?
Yeah, no, Oral, mate, Wigan.
Oral. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, no, mate. Just obviously spending time in the garden certainly over the last week or so. There's not much else to do, is there? So. Just been doing a bit on the garden and shirts off, and might as well get a tan while we can, because I don't think we're going on holiday this year.
You've been popping up everywhere on social media, though. You've been doing things in the community. I saw you turn up at Stuart Pike, man with the Mike's house, one day with a delivery. Talk us through that. What's been the thinking behind all of that? Yeah,
obviously, and obviously Lee has as well. We're both ambassadors for the Steve Prescott Foundation, and been doing a lot of the deliveries, the essential items to the people of St Helens. A lot of the key workers, the elderly and the vulnerable, and been doing obviously the shopping, and then obviously the Eccleston Arms, Andrew McKyle there has set up a great service there. Obviously doing all the items, but also ready meals as well, and Sunday roast. So. Yeah, all the ambassadors, myself, Lee, Tommy Martin, Johnny Vegas, have been going out delivering to all the people.
Well, you've both been making most of your time in lockdown, and it's great to see. Let's get into some of the rugby boys. Bit of a weird time, isn't it? At the minute, we kind of know when we're going to be coming back, but it's still a fair while away. Lee, obviously, I mean, you're in the coaching setup at Warrington at the minute. How difficult is it for you and Steve and everyone else to try and prepare to keep the boys focused and everything like that when you're still effectively 7-8 weeks away at least from playing again?
Yeah, that's the thing is, we've not had a date set yet, so that's a difficult time, and we can't. I think off the top of my head, it's about 12 weeks we've been off now, so we can't tell the boys to train for 12 weeks. And then another, 7 or 8 weeks full on. So it's hard when we've not got a time. Once we get that locked in, we can then, give them a certain plan they can do. So we're still furloughed, so we can't use any of the facilities at Warrington. So it's been tough for the boys. But I think the most the hardest part about it is the uncertainty of when we're going to get back. You listen this morning and it looks like the R rate's going to go back up. So will that push us back? So nothing's been set in stone, and I can fully understand why nothing's been set in stone, because if we set something, let's say for instance, we set it in middle of August, and then there's another spike, and we've got to put it back. Well, it's a lot more messing about. So I can fully understand why the powers that be have not, they've not set something, in stone, because things could change, as we know, and it changes daily. But it's been frustrating, but it's also, these guys are fully professional, so most of them, they like the way the body looks anyway, so they're going to train anyway. Back in my day, if I was having 12 weeks off, there was no training for me.
I was gonna bring that up, Scully. I mean, look, all the players are giving the line, oh yeah, we're working hard, we're doing things in the garden, this and that. Honestly though, as a player, if you're having all this time off, are you really training every day? Surely the crates are coming out, the barbecues are being lit every night. Surely.
I'm sure there's been a few barbecues and a few beers, no doubt. But players know that they can't let themselves go. There is going to be, hopefully, sooner rather than later, back playing and back training, and you can't turn up to training, not being able to play at the level that you was at before. So players know they've got to maintain it. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be like training at the club every day, because you've not got the facilities, you've not got the equipment to do that, a lot of them. So they've just got to try and work around that and just try and keep some sort of fitness levels. But it's no doubt the boys, and like Lee says, it's hard to plan at the moment when games are going to start, when you get them players back in and getting to that level to be able to go out and play.
I suppose the other thing as well is there's your own pride, isn't there, when you get back to training? I suppose you all want to come back being the best in the group. And I assume when you go training in rugby league, you get caught out and you stick out like a sore thumb if you're not up to speed. Like, is that fairly? Has there ever been times where you've seen someone turn up to training and just not be there, and it's very, very apparent?
That was me. It's you're dead right, and Paul's dead right. These guys are super, super professional. Let's not beat about the bush. There will be times where they relax, and that's important as well, because they need to be fresh here. If they're training for 12 weeks and another, so it could be essentially 20 weeks. That's like 4 pre-seasons. It's so they can't do that. It's impossible. But these guys are super, super professional, and you only have to look on Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter. There's a lot of people doing a lot of long distance runs to keep the body fat down and stuff. So they found new ways of training. The one thing what they won't be able to do is, they can't lift heavy weights because they've not got stuff there, so the body mass might go down. But also the contact side of stuff. These guys are used to whacking each other every day in training, so that's something what they're gonna miss. That's something what we're gonna have to look at coming back to play. We can't just go, right, this is the date, we're back in. These guys need training up for that. Else, on the flip side, I'm not too. I'm obviously, we have head of performance and stuff like that who know about the contact side of stuff and what it takes. These guys can't go back within a week or two and go straight into contact. It's just, it's feeding them to the lions. That
I'm still staggered that a man of your talent is telling me that you're a bad trainer.
Well, I did all my training off the field, so in video rooms, I used to get my head right instead of my body. So I was my study was all done in video rooms, watching hours and hours and hours of opposition teams. So maybe I should have done some more weights or less skill. So I was always skill and video. Well, some people do a lot of weights instead of skills. So I always used to say, if there's any extras, you'll see them all going in the gym doing the curls. I go on the field. Maybe we should have swapped it around. I should have gone and done curls, and they do extra skill.
Well, what were you like as a trainer, Scully?
Yeah, do you know what? I always enjoyed training. I was a good trainer. Still train now. It's always been a big part of my life, and probably very lucky that when I was playing that I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed the horrible side of it as well. The fitness, the conditioning, the weights. It was always something that I prided myself on, and And again, that's not something that you can just switch off when you finish playing. So that's something I've carried on. That's just me. So I was very lucky. But Lee talking about him there, his talent was his skill, was his vision, was his kicking. And games are not won in the gym. Games are won by playing smart rugby and skill levels now. And that's something I know that you're gonna touch on is a difference in obviously in today's game and when we played. And for me, that's a big one. Is the skill levels.
I think sometimes it's hard to compare generation to generation because the game's the same, but it's different as well. Everyone compares Martin Afire to wingers of this day and age, and how do you compare the two when they were effectively they had different skills, different talents? But what I wanted to touch on really was how much it has changed in the playing style, but also the standard. You mentioned the skill level there. Lee, are you sort of on the same train of thought as Scully there, that the skills are different now, maybe not even quite as good as they were back when you guys were taken to the field?
It is a difficult one because I see it day in, day out. When you got your top level players, they are skillful. They're very, very skillful. They're just as skillful as I just think that the game's changed. The game has changed. So, where I've been coached in the past is, if you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter. Just go and defend and keep practicing that skill. You're going to make mistakes. That's a part of learning. If you make a mistake, you learn from it. I think the game's changed a lot now where it's all about possession. And if you make a mistake, you could be under pressure a lot. So I think it's us as coaches who needs to change our philosophy on, if a certain player makes a mistake, it's not the be all and end all. You just go and learn a new skill in defence. And good teams can make errors and defend them. And that it's just a mentality. And we've got some fabulous players who've got really good skill. But I think I touched on this not long ago with we found our skill, the likes of our era. And I hate going back to our era because it's a different game. But we found our skill. We didn't find it much in training. We found it playing on the field against our mates when we was 7, 8, 9. Making games. So we used to make our own games, whether it be rugby league or some form of rugby league, 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, 3v3s. Chip chase. Throwing it out the back. We built our skills around that. Scully had 2 older brothers, a brother on either side of him. He would have been playing against Danny and Lee every day on the field, and they used to play and they used to make their own skill up. We at training, we trying to do that a lot, but it kind of gets lost in the big picture stuff. By the big picture stuff, I mean, preparing to win on that weekend. Kids nowadays, are on computers. You don't see them out. Society's changed. It's not the kids' fault. It's us, probably us adults. We've changed. We've got access to phones. Internet tells you everything. So we get a bit paranoid as a society. So kids can't. Are you allowing your kid to go and do what we did? No, my mum and dad didn't know what I was doing every day. They didn't know what I was doing. One day I'd just be out playing, come in from school at 4 o'clock, out till 9 o'clock. They didn't have a clue. Now you know where your kid is every day, every minute of the day. It's society. We've changed society. We was kids, we were playing every single day. I worked it out. I did a little bit of a study on myself. And it worked out about, I'd probably play rugby league through the week, about 35 hours of the week. That's everything, playing with my mates, my school rugby team, playing in your dinner hour at school, your local amateur club, about 35 hours. Now, kids nowadays will probably, if they're lucky, do probably 4 hours of rugby league. They'll do 1 hour on a Tuesday, 1 hour on a Thursday, maybe a game at the weekend and one at school. You don't see the likes of, we used to do 4 hours in one night, 4 till 8. Do that every day. There's a lot more time you're on that ball and learning.
It's really interesting. That another thing I was going to bring up, and we'll touch on that a bit more. But when I speak to people in the game, they always, when they talk about forwards in particular, and even backs now, they talk about kilos, how much they weigh, how much weight they're carrying. Has there been Scully, do you think too much emphasis put on that side of it as well, rather than, the athletic side of it, rather than, as Lee's saying, the skill side of it?
I think there has been. I don't think that's as much the case now. I think players know that being athletic and you're going to be strong. You don't have to carry weight. I always say scales are a myth. It's not about weight. It's about how strong you are, how fit you are, how many times you can get up and down off the floor. And I think you look at some of the better forwards. The likes of Luke Thompson now. They're athletic, they're lean. Probably 100 kilos if that. The game's changed, and I think with the new rules as well within the game, the substitutes coming down, the shot clock and everything, there's less room now for your big fellas who can't do repetitive, up and downs or, energy levels within the game.
Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting topic, and I think we should carry it on. We will be right back. Welcome back to Rugby League Back Chat. Before the break, we were talking about how the game's changed and evolved, maybe regressed in some areas. We're going to get back into that now. Lee, one thing I wanted to pick up with you, I was speaking to Matt Diskin about this, and he said he doesn't think that players are coached to play with their eyes up anymore. He thinks it's too structure-based, that they're not encouraged to play what they see in front of them. Obviously, I mean, Scully mentioned that your vision, awareness was impeccable. Do you think that that's a fair assessment now, that players are maybe encouraged not to play with their eyes up, to play what they see in front of them?
I can only speak on my experience, and no, that's untrue. Maybe, right. Might have come across that. I have not come across that, because our game's all based on numbers now, and more than any time I've ever seen. We get to a point to look up and look in front, and if you've got simple analogy is, if you've got more attackers and they've got defenders, every player is asked then to go and attack them. So that's how we play, or should I say, I've been coached that way, and obviously coached that way as well. So again, it's probably been lost in translation. That maybe it's the guys who can see it more regular than other people, or the off the cuff kind of people who see something different what somebody else can't see. But we're playing to numbers. Obviously, it's part of the game now. If you've got 5 attackers and they've got 4 defenders, well, guys are coached to go and take that. So it's probably different on different coaches. Matt's probably seeing it the other way. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying the way I've seen it is right. There's no one way. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. I've seen it work both ways. But I suppose what we're saying is that them off the cuff players are more are not, there's not that many of them at the moment, because it is structured. It is very structured. Mm-hmm. So the person who is willing to take that risk, probably the last one was Danny Maguire, who's just retired. So, if he sees something, let's say, I always use, the chip and chase yourself. How many times can you tell me one that you ever seen the last one of them?
No, not a clue. Years ago.
So it's kind of, that player who thinks on his feet, who's going to do something, and you know what? If it doesn't come off, so what? It doesn't bother us. That's what we live and die by.
It's good. The other thing, I've been watching a lot of the Challenge Cup Classics that the BBC have put on, and one thing that were apparent, certainly 80s, early 90s, the defensive structure of teams was nothing like it is compared to now. Defensively, the game looks like it's completely evolved, but maybe even beyond attacking. Is that maybe a reason, Scully, why players are finding it harder to give the show and go and run through, because the defences are a lot meaner than they used to be?
I don't know whether they're a lot meaner. I think defence has evolved because of the attack as well. What we're talking about there, what Lee was talking about structures and You know, I agree with Matt Diskin. You know, I've worked with some of the younger sides, certainly like the England youth, and worked with players. And if you don't give kids them structures, sometimes they don't know what to do, because it's what they've grown up doing. You know, in this new era of the way the game's played. And you know, I like doing like game-based training, you know, and let kids go and play. Let them play and express what they see and play what's in front of them. I know Lee talked about, you know, structures and getting to a point. Well, even getting to that point, if there's something on, play it now. Don't get there to put something else on. And even as much as the plays, you know, you see this block play, you know, lead runners out the back. Players don't necessarily play the right play in that, you know, because they play what they think they're going to do before the ball's played. You know, so for me, it has changed a lot, and you know, it's taken away a lot of them players. You know, the likes of Briers that go out and just express it and play as they see. You know, but play what's on.
I mean, we could go on this all day. The other thing, a lot of people mention that the old school loose forward, the Paul Sculthorpes and the Andy Farrells of this world don't exist anymore. I know you've still got Sean O'Loughlin, but a lot of teams use your role now as a third prop, don't they? I mean, is that hard for you to see the way that, you know, the way you played the game in that position?
It is, and you know, that frustrate me if I was an halfback as well. You know, I'm not a fan of this three middles. You know, for me, you've got two props who play like props, and you've got a 13 who can do a bit of everything. You know, all this three middles and playing three props, but he's playing everything off these props. You know, James Graham kind of changed the way that this worked. You know, Jammer, it was a natural part of his game that Jammer always had. You know, his game was wanting to run over people. That was first and foremost. Was his job as a prop was to rip the ball in. You know, either break the line. If you can't break the line, get a quick play of the ball. But Jammer always had that vision where if there was a pass on and there was somebody in a better place, he'd pass the ball. Now it's just seemed to evolve now that all props want to do this, and sometimes it's an overthought of what their first job is. You know, as a prop is get quick play of the balls and get you on that front foot. And for me, you see a lot of halfbacks playing out the back on the back of a prop playing at first pass. And for me, it just slows everything down, and it takes away that opportunity of a halfback running a game and actually playing what's on.
What do you think, Lee?
You know, in the modern game, that'd frustrate me.
What do you think, Lee?
There's argues to it both, and you know, we certainly played with three middles at Warrington. We've also played with a loose forward. I'm an attack coach, so I want a ball playing loose forward to play loose forward. And we've had them over here. So I studied the game a hell of a lot, both here and Australia. So Australia went through this period playing three middles, and you know, they've had that probably for the last 10 years. You know, when we've had these ball playing loose forwards, Scully, you know, Kevin Sinfield, Joe Westerman, Sean O'Loughlin. We've all, you know, then Scully was a bit earlier, then Kevin, and then, you know, and we've had some fantastic ball playing loose forwards. Then we've probably 5 years ago gone to the three middles, like Australia. Now Australia are coming out of that, and we're still in it. Now they're going, well, it's all come back, and we've got Cameron Murray at South Sydney. They've got Victor Radley at Roosters, and they're saying, wow, it's like the old-fashioned loose forwards come back, and we've still got that. But we're still in the three middles as well. So we've kind of followed Australia again, instead of just going, no, this is our game. This is what we're good at. We've got ball-playing loose forwards who like to play because that's what they're good at. And that's the way our games are. No, so Australia now raving over, they've got some ball-playing loose forwards. I'm guaranteeing
that's the thing that frustrates me is, you know, is play the British way, play what we do, and you know, if we're going to compete at international, let's be the best at what we do, not what the Aussies do. Let's not try and beat them at their game if that's the way they play. And like you said, they've evolved now in the way that the game's played. You know, there's a bit more flair, a bit more open play. You know, for me, a halfback is a guy who who runs the show. Now, at the moment in Super League, for me, that halfback isn't near enough the action, and there's halfbacks, and that's what I'm saying about these young kids coming through. They've never known anything different than the role that they currently have. So in regards to, running the game, directing players, steering the ship, you did, Lee, like Longy did. Players who absolutely dominate games. But young players have never experienced that. They fell into this new way of playing, and for me, it's not improved our game.
No, and I go back to, we need to educate the coaches, the amateur coaches, and this falls solely on, professional coaches, because that's where we're running the game. So what happens is then it feeds down, and then these amateur coaches and amateur players see they want to be this player. Now, back 20 years ago, everybody wanted to be Paul Sculthorpe. So that's how they played, and that's how they coached teams. Now that they're seeing the structured stuff, so that's how they're going to coach. So we kind of really need to reboot everything, if that's the way we want to go. Personally, I'd get rid of scholarships, and bring back under 11s town team, under 13s town team, under 15s town team, and just let kids play. Wow. Don't worry about the results. Don't worry about scholarships. Too much pressure on kids. Just go and play. Enjoy yourself. Play. We're not bothered about, everybody wants to win. I get that because we're all that competitive. We want to win, but there's a bigger picture here. Let the kids play. At the moment, we don't let them play in that
That's
way.
it. You're gonna get better players who have got better players. Will be the players with the better physical attributes and the best skill. And the best way of doing that is coaching skill, is core skills. Drills, games. Put them in situations where there's a bit of pressure, but they can express themselves and they can play what they see. Telling them how to do things. Unfortunately, games do not pan out as training sessions do. So when you've coached them and you've structured them to death, when they come to a game and it's not worked out like it has done in training, what do they do? But the big one for me is that actual core skill. Core skill wins games.
Yeah, core skill in anything, in any. I'll just use sport as an analogy. Core skill in any sport, makes a champion player, because what you're doing is you're building the base. It's like my house here. If I don't build the base, it's going to fall down. When there's a bit of pressure on it, when there's a wind, or if there's a gale force wind, it'll fall down. There's no base. So when people come under pressure, and you've got no core skill, you've got no base, you fall down. Now, I've seen it so many times, and I've seen some people come through systems who can't pass from right to left and left to right. That's a core fundamental skill of rugby league. How can they then progress any further if they can't do that? Why are we not coaching and making sure that is nailed? When we were back in our day, I've never seen a kid coach now the way we used to coach tackling. From behind, put your head behind and stuff like that. I don't see it. They're core skills. Mm-hmm. The game's not changed. It's just that we're changing. We think we're making it better. Core skills are key in any sport. If you've got the right core swing, you're right, the mechanics of it. Well, under pressure, when you've got a shot to win the comp, you'll do it because you've got core skill. It's critical, absolute critical. But again, I'll go back to coaching. We just want to go for that big play, so we're going to coach them how to go out the back, score in the corner. Well, that might be the case, but when you put 13 defenders in front of them and they're coming flying at you, and they've not got the right pass catch or the right line to it, it's going to fall down. It's not rocket science. Unfortunately, we make this game too complicated.
I think one thing, just to touch on what you said, Scully, we don't play to our strength. We don't play the British way. I know that's been a criticism of a lot of people, that we try and be something that were maybe not. I remember I watched that Great Britain game that was on Sky the other day when we beat the Aussies, and the flair that were on show. Sean Long had an unbelievable game, but there were offloads everywhere. The game doesn't seem to be played that way anymore, but that seems to be where our strength certainly did lie. So why did we ever go away from it?
I don't know. I think, like Lee says, maybe it's the influence of coaches who've come on board. I know a lot of people talk about the likes of Michael Maguire at Wigan and the way they played, and whether it's just that Australian way that's come over. But I totally agree. I think when we've been at our best in international level, it's when we play with skill, play with flair. And do you know what? Genetically, we're different than the Australians. The Polynesians, whatever. Don't try and beat them at where they excel. Do where we excel, and for me, that's always been skill level, and pace. And I know that's something. I'm fortunate now to be involved in the England setup, and absolutely, it's a breath of fresh air working with Sean Wayne. We meet every Thursday on Zoom and go through stuff, and he that's a big thing. What he wants is play how. Do the things that will win England a World Cup, or we're obviously looking at an Ashes series at the back end of this year. Unfortunately, not happening. But I think you'll see a different international side next year. Sorry.
I'm just going to touch on that quickly. The Great Britain tour didn't go as planned. Can we, from what you know, from what you've experienced, can we expect to see a different England, a different style of play to what we saw under Wayne Bennett, which, ultimately got us to a World Cup final, but the Great Britain tour, I'm sure you will agree, was very, very disappointing.
Yeah, I think you'll see a vast difference in the way that the team will play, in what's expected of the players in representing and wearing an England jersey. In regards to efforts and commitment. Not saying that they weren't committed previously, but also the way that they play.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll see a big difference, and potentially in obviously selections as well.
That's going to be interesting, Lee. Just quickly before we go to a break, is there anyone you're expecting to sort of emerge internationally in the next year or so before the World Cup?
It's a tough question. Obviously, I had 8 weeks off now, but there will be. There will be. And there's one thing I really believe Sean Wayne will do. He'll pick players on form, and he'll pick the best person to play in that position.
We've run out of time, unfortunately. We'll be back after a short break where we'll get right back into it. Stay where you are. Final part of this week's Rugby League Batch. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. We've got plenty more to get into. Now, we're going to open this conversation up. I'm going to come to Lee Briers first. I want to talk about underrated players. Now, gents, I hope you won't mind, because you were both fantastic players, but you got the credit. There are some players that quite simply just do not get the credit that they deserve for their talents. Lee, you've played with a lot of players internationally at club level, and even played against a lot of players. Are there any people that stand out in your mind who were criminally underrated?
I think one standout and comes to mind. He's from actually where you're from, Matt. Is Simon Grips. Simon was in today's game. He would be worth, be nearly marquee player, because he could play absolutely everywhere. I think he did play everywhere for Warrington, actually. As tough as they come, did all the dirty stuff, but so skillful, and he had natural talent. I can't speak highly enough of Gripsy. He probably struggled with injury a touch. I think because he put his body on the line that much, he found a lot of injury, but he could play prop, hooker, loose forward, centre, fullback, standoff. He could play everywhere. and he could do it absolutely unbelievable. So he just didn't fill in. He actually made a difference when he did, and he should have, if stayed clear of injury, he should have been an international for years. And it's now, he's becoming a great coach at Halifax, which does not surprise me in the slightest.
It's an interesting one with him, as you said. Warrington, I look at Warrington's fans on social media, and they all rave about him, speak so fondly of him. Yet then, if you seem to go out of Warrington, he doesn't seem to really get any acknowledgement for how good a player he was. Why does it happen? It seems to happen. It's not just him. It happens to many players over the careers. Why is it?
Yeah, I suppose people and fans, just like you've got to smash people, you've got to set tries up and be flamboyant, or you've got to be fast, and you get recognised for that. Well, actually, Grixie was all three. He didn't have, and I'm not doing him injustice here. He wasn't like unbelievable at just one. He was very, very good at everything. So not one thing stood out, which in my eyes is miles better. He was a complete player. He was awesome. He'd fill in for anybody. He was a ball playing 13. A wonderful player. Wonderful player.
And Scully, I mean, you played in superstar teams at St Helens. You won so many trophies. Was there anyone in those sides that didn't quite get the recognition that they deserved?
I think, in teams, I think you're always going to get your players in it, and it always tends to be key players in key positions who touch the ball more than anybody else. So like Lee says, you're scoring tries or you're putting the big shots on. So I played in some great teams at St Helens, and a lot of quality players. I mean, to get in that St Helens team, you had to be a quality player. I'll probably speak about one player in particular who I talk about Mike when I do talks, and he's always an example I use to kids. Actually, Mike Bennett, he won't mind me telling you this, and because I actually did it in a school presentation at his school for him. Was you get players who have so much natural ability, but don't have that work ethic and the dedication to get better, to improve, or to even stay at the level they're at. I always say natural ability will always open the door, but then you've got to kick it in and you've got to work. And Mike Bennett, and he won't mind me saying this, was somebody who didn't have a lot of natural ability. What he had was the work ethic. He'd work 150% on every single part of his game. It'd be, the first on the field doing the skill. It'd be in the gym. And this guy's got Super League rings. He's got Challenge Cup winners medals. He's got World Club Challenge medals. Of somebody who, on the ability that he was born with, probably shouldn't have done. And I think he's a great role model for a lot of kids. If you want to achieve something, that you can work hard enough to do that. And on the other flip side, I've seen a lot of players with so much natural ability, but just didn't want to work for it, and who fell by the wayside within Super League, and obviously I won't mention names, but other clubs who, players who were tipped as young kids to be the next this, the next that, and go all the way, and completely fell by the wayside because they didn't have that dedication. And I think no matter what kind of player you are, I know I can only speak for myself. I was very fortunate to break through as a young kid, but never ever stopped working to get better. I didn't want to just be a Super League player. I wanted to be the best. And to be the best, you never ever stop working and stop improving. So for me, Mike Bennett is one who always stands out at Saints to have the career that he had and playing the games and be in the big games, and a lot of time in front of a lot of players who had probably more ability. So he's one who stands out for me.
I was going to bring up the start of your career, Scully. I mean, how did the start of your career? Because I seem to recall that did I read somewhere that you'd even had an 18 game at Halifax or something like that at the start of your career?
No, my brother played at Halifax.
Brother,
my eldest brother. No, I signed for Warrington as a 14-year-old. So obviously it was different then. There was no scholarship. You could only join Warrington when obviously when I left school at 16, you know, and then that first year, I think I played 3 or 4 academy games, was straight in the reserve grade in the A team, and then made my first team debut at the back end of that first year. I think I played the last 4 or 5 games that year.
Right. And Lee, I mean, you know, you are Mr. Warrington Wolves. I don't know if you've asked. I'm sure you've been asked this before. Did you ever nearly leave?
I've nearly left a few times. No, sorry, just once. It was around 2001, maybe. 2001, 2002. Now, when I say nearly, I probably had a think about it for about a second. But the reason I signed for Saints, the reason I signed for Warrington from Saints was, you know, my good mate Paul Sculthorpe was at Warrington. Not knowing that 4 months later he was going to sign for Saints. So, yeah, thanks for that, Scully.
I don't know it. What happened? What happened there then? So you moved to why when you kind of crossed?
Yeah. So when I think I signed in April 1997 to come across to play with my old pal Scully. To make Warrington great again. And then in the pre-season of that year, Scully did one and left me in the old doo-doo to prop up the club.
He's never forgiven me.
No, we saved some money when we let Scully go.
Guess where it went?
Hey.
On that new kitchen.
Yeah.
What made you leave Scully? It wasn't that Lee Briers had joined, surely.
No, do you know what? It was before, but I felt, you know, bad on Lee because
liar.
It was probably a lot instigated before Briers come, and you know, Warrington. It was a very different club than it is today. Obviously, financially they were struggling. The big thing for me was, you know, it's a story that I tell. Yestin Harris left for Leeds, which Yestin was probably one of the best, if not the best player in Super League at the time. And that for me was a sign of Warrington's ambitions at the time. You know, was letting young players go who could be the future of Warrington being, you know, a real challenge in Super League. And for me, that wasn't the case at the time, and I wanted to play in big games. I was in the England and Great Britain setup, you know, playing with some of the players who were playing in Challenge Cup finals and winning championships, and that's all I wanted. It wasn't about financial gain. Warrington were absolutely brilliant with me with salaries and contracts, but I wanted to play on the big stage. So I had a great relationship with the chairman, Peter Hyam, and I asked for a conversation and literally asked for a transfer. So, you know, They granted me that because of the money's coming in through the sale of me, and obviously, you know, the rest is history. I went to Saints.
And Lee, which club did you consider moving to for about 5 seconds in 2001?
Widnes, it was. I met up with Neil Kelly, and just see what was. I was in contract negotiations. Actually, tell a lie, it was twice. I got offered a rugby union deal as well at the same time, which but I chose to turn it down because I was going to get picked for Great Britain, and I made that one single appearance for Great Britain, so that was worth it. I could have been a millionaire now.
I wanted to ask you about this. I mean, look, everyone says that it was criminal that you didn't play as much for Great Britain as you did. Looking back now, why do you think it worked the way that it did?
Well, there's all kinds of you know, I wasn't. Let's not beat about the bush, and I can speak about it now because I've reflected and I've moved on, and it's part of my life, part of my journey. Yeah, I was a great trainer when I was a kid, and you know, I did like a drink, so. It was nobody's fault that I didn't get picked, only my own. You know, but that's life. You know, that's made me the person I am. You know, I'm a totally different person now, and I've learned from mistakes, and now I pass that experience on. So if me not playing for Great Britain because somebody didn't think I was professional enough, helps somebody down the line, well, I'll take that. I'll take that if it helps them. But it all depends. When you play in international rugby, when you have club coaches who coach Great Britain, well, obviously you're going to favour your own player because you trust them, and I've got no issue with that. So there's all different, theories and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I just wasn't good enough, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with it.
Fair enough. I don't want to end on that. Let's talk about let's talk about something a bit more light-hearted. If you were if you weren't the best trainer, was there anyone alongside you at Warrington who didn't mind messing around a little bit, doing the pranks and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wasn't the worst trainer. So when I'm on the rugby field and that ball's in my hand, there's nobody who'll train harder. I just didn't like the fitness side of it and the weights. Maybe if I met Brett Hodgson, a bit later, because Hodgie didn't like the weights either. He was a super trainer, Brett, on the field. He was unbelievable. As you can see with his stats, he didn't like the weights either. So we were good training partners in the gym. But yeah, on the field, we trained as hard as anybody. When you get that ball in my hand, you can run around for fun. Paul Cullen he told me after I'd finished, he said, you know why we used to play a lot of, tick and pass and offside touch and game of soccer? I said, why? He said, because when you had the ball in your hand, you could run around forever. That was your fitness. If he asked you to run in straight lines, and you're struggling. So it was really good coaching, that, to be fair.
And Scully, you had the infamous Yorkshire bus that caused all sorts of havoc back in those great days at Saints. Look, many of those stories have been told over and over again. Which is your favourite, and would you mind repeating it for us as well?
Oh man, there's numerous stories with the with the Yorkshire bus. I missed the best one. I think the best one is something that happened at Ruskin Drive with Lee Gilmore and Leon Price, and I don't know how much detail I could go into that. It's funny talking about non-trainers. It's funny talking about non-trainers because Leon Price was right up there. You talk about somebody who's a natural athlete on the field and skill. Another one who dodged as much training as he could.
So what was the story about James Graham? I think that's a popular one. Didn't he try and run over the boys or something like that?
Yeah, that was after that was obviously Mad Monday. I think we'd won the grand final, and Gilly, Leon Price, and Paul Anderson were obviously stopping at the Griffin Inn in St Helens. Through the night, decided to go to Morrison's and buy a hair dye, a jet black hair dye, and do Jammer's head and eyebrows and everything while he was blind drunk asleep. To which Jammer got up in the morning, wasn't impressed, put his hand through the window, unfortunately breaking his hand, which cost him a GB tour. But Jammer tried getting his own back by firstly running the boys over and then threatening to set fire to the car and everything else. It's just funny to look back at. The funniest moment, I found a picture of it the other day. We have a WhatsApp group, all the ex-players, and a picture of Jammer. I just remember it was in O'Neill's on Duke Street in St Helens, and this was like late on the day after. I just remember turning around at the bar and Jammer stood next to me just waiting for a drink, and he'd completely just left his hair and his eyebrows. And I mean, when Gilly had done it, he'd literally rubbed it on with his hands. So it wasn't just his eyebrows and his hair, it was his head, it was his cheeks, it was everywhere. I just remember turning around and seeing Jammer and just chuckling. But it was funny. It wasn't funny in the morning when Jammer lost the plot, but certainly reflecting back at.
What does he say about breaking his hand and costing himself a GB tour off the back of it?
Yeah, I think that'll obviously be a big disappointment in Jammer's career, but I think he's more than made up for experiences after that.
He has, very, very much. Well, it's a lovely story to end on. Funny one as well. Gents, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you on board. Thank you to everyone who's watched as well. We'll be back very, very soon for another episode of Rugby League Back Chat. But for now, take care, look after yourself, and enjoy everything you can to do with Rugby League.